3 Sinister True Alone at Work Horror Stories Revealed. Terrifying events in the haunted rain. Samantha stepped into the hospital, her heart racing as the relentless rain pummeled the windows. Shadows danced along the slick floors, each flickering light bulb casting an eerie glow across the sterile white walls. The combination of antiseptic and something metallic curling in the air made her stomach churn. She could almost feel the weight of fear leaning on her shoulders like a heavy cloak, suffocating and cold. What should have been a quiet night in the Midwestern suburb felt deeply unsettling. As her shift began, the stillness of the hospital felt wrong. Hours passed, each one dragging slower than the last. She rounded the corner, and a flickering light overhead caught her attention. Shadows flitted past her, just out of sight. Were they in her mind? No, there were whispers, distorted and fragmented, swirling like a storm in the empty hallways. They were alive with the echoes of lost souls, leaving her with a prickling sense of dread. At first, it was just background noise, but as the minutes ticked by, the whispers morphed into words. Get out, they taunted. Then, without warning, the hospital plunged into darkness. The sound of machines faded into an all-consuming silence. Her heart raced, thumping loudly in the void. It felt as if the entire building had taken a breath in the absence of sound. She gripped her flashlight like a lifeline, its beam trembling as she moved deeper into the oppressive gloom. Each step echoed, a haunting reminder of her isolation. She approached room 204, the door ajar, a stark contrast to the usual locked rooms. Darkness yawned before her, its chill prickling against her skin. She pushed the door open and froze. There, beneath the sheets lay a bulk that was undeniably wrong. An uneasiness twisted in her gut. Suddenly, a sharp draft swept through the room, and with it came an overwhelming presence, heavy and ancient. The stories of the nurse who vanished decades ago rushed back to her. The whispers about betrayal coursing through the corridors were all too real now. The thought of it tightened around her throat. Feeling suffocated by the air thick with dread, she tried to flee, her instincts screaming at her to run. But then, behind her, footsteps echoed quick and too light, almost like they floated above the ground. Panic surged, and she stumbled into a coworker in the hallway. But the warning in the older nurse's eyes chilled her to the bone. "You need to trust your instincts, Sam," she said, voice quaking. It was cryptic and terrifying, but Samantha felt an urgent need for clarity. "Before we continue, I need to tell you something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to their system, and many people are missing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, click the bell and select all notifications so you don't miss future videos. And if you can leave a like, it really helps me with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, tell me in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now let's continue. Feeling trapped, her mind spiraled with paranoia. Were her co-workers allies or part of something sinister? The shadows seemed to grow bolder around her, flicking just out of sight. A sudden flicker of lights flooded the hallway with harsh electric glow, causing her to squint. Panic ignited in her chest like a flame. Her coworker stood before her, wide-eyed with terror. "You need to get out of here," she gasped, and Samantha felt the familiar pulse of darkness closing in around her. The shadows morphing, shifting, and bending reality. Could she escape the haunted halls of the hospital before it was too late? Or was she already ensnared in its chilling grasp? The question clawed at her as the shadows loomed larger, leaving her gasping for breath. Samantha's pulse quickened as she glanced back toward the flickering lights, her breath shallow. She could feel the weight of the air around her, thick like fog, dragging her down. The hospital's silence was heavy, oppressive. "Just keep moving," she urged herself, clenching her flashlight tighter, willing it to cut through the darkness more fiercely. Her coworker's urgent face was now lost in the shadows, swallowed whole. Was it fear or panic that drove her? Did it matter? Determined to escape, she turned, feet pounding against the tile floor. The path twisted and turned, each corner sparking dread, as if something lurked just beyond her line of sight. She needed to find the nearest exit, but the layout twisted in her mind, an unending maze designed to ensnare. The whispers returned, louder now, clawing through her thoughts. Stay, they hissed, sweet and chilling. Samantha felt it drawing her back. Why would she listen? She shook her head, trying to drown them out, but the words crashed over her like waves. Suddenly, the lights flickered back on an electrical hum filling the void, accompanied by a stutter of machines reawakening. In the moment of relief, a breath caught in her throat. She could see nurses' stations, patient rooms, the scuffed linoleum. But it was wrong. The place felt grotesque under the stark light, a nightmarish version of where she worked. A door banged open down the corridor, sending her heart into a frenzy. Someone was in the hospital with her. "Hello?" she called, voice trembling but defiant. The echo mocked her, and silence fell again, cloak-like, settling over the place. There had to be someone. She couldn't be the only one. She rushed toward the nursing station, hoping to find help, but it was empty. The chairs pulled away from the desk as if someone had left in a hurry, papers scattered like fallen leaves. A chart lay open, the name on it hastily scrawled M. Warren. It sent chills racing down her spine. That was the name on the last death she had noted that day, a patient who had slipped away unnoticed. Pushing the dreadful thought aside, she swayed when she turned. Another presence in close proximity, a shadow looming at the end of the hall. It was just out of reach. Is someone there? The fear in her voice shattered. The figure didn't move, a dark silhouette against the light. Samantha hesitated. Should she run or confront it? With a shaky breath, she stepped forward, determination warring with terror. The figure seemed to twitch, turning ever so slightly. Her heart thudded like a war drum, echoing in her ears. "Get out," a voice croaked, familiar and raspy like ash scraping against metal. From the shadows emerged not just a figure, but a face, twisted and hollow. Her skin crawled. It was her co-worker, a faint glimmer of life trapped between the world of the living and something darker. "Help me," the ghost pleaded, and Samantha stumbled back, realizing it wasn't help she could provide. This was a warning, a tether dragging her to the very brink of a deep abyss. The darkness shifted again, alive and hungry. Samantha's mind raced. Could she trust what she was seeing? Was this vision real, or a trick of the malevolent force in the hospital? She needed to flee, needed to escape. The weight of the past pressed in, memories of lost souls filling the air around her. "Run!" her spirit screamed. But the shadows reached out, grasping at her, tightening like a cold embrace. With her instincts screaming for escape, she pivoted once more, her legs pumping hard as she raced toward the stairwell. The whispers escalated to a crescendo behind her, a chorus of restless spirits urging her to stay as she reached for the door marked with a single flickering light. Was it escape or another trap? With one last desperate leap, she swung open the door, heart hammering against her ribs. But nothing could prepare her for what awaited on the other side. The question hung before her, dreadful and deep. Would she find freedom in the dark or plunge deeper into the nightmare that entwined the hospital like a choking vine? She stepped into a void, breathless, light slicing through the darkness like a knife. But her heart sank as the overwhelming silence dropped like a stone. The walls of the stairwell stretched endlessly, painted a sickly shade of yellow that seemed to pulse under her dim beam. Each step echoed, tauntingly loudly in the stillness. "Where are you?" she whispered, hoping against hope for an answer. A ghostly shiver crawled up her spine, and for a fleeting moment, she felt as if unseen eyes bore into her. She paused, gripping the railing, staring down into the darkness below. It felt like it was breathing, the shadows coiling and twisting, eager to draw her in. Did the whispers come from there? Worthless memories brushed against her mind, urging her to turn back. "Just keep going," she urged, forcing her legs to mobilize again. On the stairwell's landing, she found herself facing a closed door. The paint was chipped and peeling, and an icy draft seeped through the cracks. It offered a promise of escape or perhaps a fate even worse. Her instincts screamed at her to move on, to find the exit. but the gnawing sense of dread spilled into curiosity. What lay behind that door? A warmth of comfort beckoned, clashing violently with the terror winding through her. She reached for the doorknob, her fingers trembling. The moment she touched it, a thunderous crash echoed from above. Her heart raced as she jerked back, squeezing her eyes shut. "No, no," she muttered, scrambling back down the steps. The sounds grew louder, heavier, the unmistakable thud of footsteps, dragging like a heavy sack. Each step resonated through the building, shuddering the walls. Whatever it was coming for her. "Get a grip," she breathed, trying to steady her heartbeat. She didn't want to believe this was real, that she wasn't alone in this nightmare. Panting, she turned away from the door, ready to run again. But then the whispers returned. "Stay," they cooed, ghostly and soft, wrapping around her like a thick mist. "Why would I stay?" she shouted, her voice rebounding back at her. But the whispers were relentless, his soft tune lulling her already frayed nerves. Before she could sink into despair, she spun around towards the door she had initially fled from. It was ajar now, slightly swaying as if inviting her in. She felt a magnetic pull toward it. Driven by some morbid curiosity, Samantha cautiously approached and pushed it open. Dim light spilled from within, illuminating a small room lined with shelves of dusty medical books and jars filled with murky liquids. The air felt cooler, tinged with the scent of antiseptic and decay. At the center of the room stood a figure, hunched over a table. A shadow cloaked their face, and long fingers danced over a clipboard filled with notes. Heart in her throat, she opened her mouth but no words came out. "What are you?" she managed to croak. The figure turned slowly, lifting its head. Deep-set eyes bore into her. "You shouldn't have come here," it whispered, a voice echoing the despair of hundreds. It wasn't a warning. It was a promise of her fate. Samantha felt the walls closing in. She stumbled back, realization dawning. This room belonged not just to the hospital but to a legacy of secrets of lives stripped away and forgotten. Then, without warning, the door slammed shut behind her, like a cell closing on its prey. Samantha's heart raced, fear clawing at her chest. The figure stepped forward, and with every step, a chilling sensation enveloped her. "Now, you know the truth." The lights flickered again, casting distorted shadows that twisted and danced like the trapped souls inside them. As the reality of her situation crashed over her, she scanned the room for a way out. She wasn't alone, and the darkness inside was waiting to engulf her whole. What awaited next? A truth she might wish she never uncovered, or a way to escape back into the haunted corridors, away from this wretched fate? With dark laughter hanging in the air, the choice became clear. Stay and face whatever lay ahead, or venture back into the abyss the hospital offered, hoping for the best while knowing it could be far worse. The question loomed. Could Samantha confront the truth that awaited her, or would she succumb to the very darkness she feared? Samantha's breath hitched as the figure advanced. Its presence, heavy and suffocating, filled the room. Shadows danced around it, making Caleb's form appear monstrous. Her heart pounded in her chest, a frantic drum signaling her impending doom. "Why shouldn't I have come here?" she demanded, trying to muster defiance. The figure's smile stretched unsettlingly, full of secrets hidden behind yellowed teeth. "Because here, truth is a weapon." It bleeds. The words slithered into her ears, wrapping around her mind like a vice, squeezing tightly. She backed further until she noticed the wall pressing against her. Panic surged. She felt trapped, confined by knowledge she didn't want. "I'm not afraid of your truth. Are you not?" Caleb replied, tilting his head. The air chilled, alternating between heat and frost. It prickled her skin. "The truth here will consume you." What did he mean? The books on the shelves caught her attention. They were filled with tales of horrors, accounts of madness. As she scanned the spines, each title taunted her, years of misery and despair printed for her to see. Suddenly, his voice shifted. 57 souls whispered their secrets here. Samantha. Lovely stories. Stories you will become part of if you remain. A low growl echoed from the shadows behind him. The dark seemed alive, swirling ominously like a storm gathering force. She stepped back, her survival instincts kicking in. Then she noticed. Around the room were small jars with grotesque contents. Body parts? Or something worse? Her mind raced. What do you want from me? Caleb's long fingers pointed toward her heart. You carry your own truth. Something dark and twisted. It's all that gathers here: fear, guilt, deep-seated sorrow. Will you share it? She staggered. The air thickened with dread. It's not mine, she screamed, but doubt wormed its way into her mind. Hadn't she come here seeking answers, driven by a darkness of her own? Open the door, then see what lies hidden away, he purred, a chilling invitation. The walls seemed to pulsate as if time itself had paused, the heartbeat of the building muffling her thoughts. With the door behind her, she glanced back. Memories flooded back, whispers of loss, shadows of regret wrapped tightly around her heart. Long-buried fears clawed their way to the surface. She could deny it no longer. Was she truly ready to face her truth? A slam echoed, and light flickered dangerously. Caleb was right. The edges of her consciousness shook. Could she trust him? Every instinct told her to run, but the other half, the curious, reckless part of her, begged her to stay. The growls morphed into laughter as the shadows crept closer. You'll be free if you face it, Samantha, or you'll join the others, forever tied to this darkness. A cold sweat trickled down her back. Would she be swallowed whole? Just another cautionary tale in Caleb's twisted tale of hauntings? Choice time, he sneered, watching her with wide, gleaming eyes. Will you open the door to truth, or find comfort in the floor you tread? Samantha felt her pulse quicken, time slipping away. She knew escape was an illusion. Whatever lay behind that door was not something to fear, but an integral part of herself she'd been running from. Well, Caleb repeated, his breath chilling the air. What will it be? Truth or darkness? She took a breath, her mind racing. But as she opened her mouth for her answer, the ground trembled, the whispers crescendoed into a furious roar. Had she even made a choice? The chaos enveloped her, filling her with despair and curiosity all at once. The lights blinked wildly, revealing a shifting reflection in the window behind Caleb, a figure, no, many figures, writhing against a glass prison of their own making. Her heart battered against her chest. Would this be the end, or the beginning of the nightmare? Stay or go, Caleb urged, an eerie grin spreading across his face. Waiting. As the shadows expanded, waiting for her decision, fear gripped her like a vice. Would she summon the courage, or would fear tear her apart? Just as the choice solidified in her mind, a guttural scream echoed from the depths of the room. Someone or something was trapped beyond that door, crying for release. What was to come next would shake the very foundations of her will. The scream pierced through the air like a blade, sending chills down Samantha's spine. It was raw, desperate, a sound born of agony and hopelessness. The shrill wail reverberated in her ears, drowning out her thoughts. Caleb's expression morphed into something eager, almost delighted, as if he fed on her fear. Do you hear that? He drawled, his eyes gleaming with a malevolent hunger. That is what awaits behind the door. A truth so dark that it tore him apart. Just like it will for you unless you open it. Her heart raced, each beat resonating loudly within the oppressive silence. The shadows were creeping closer, curling around her legs like the hands of the damned reaching out from the floor. She felt the weight of every regret and every lost opportunity slam into her like a freight train. The scream echoed again, frantic and loud. Help, please. Swallowing hard, she shook her head, forcing herself to focus. What do you want from me? She demanded, her voice coming out shaky. Caleb's grin widened. Your truth, Samantha. Only then will you know freedom. He gestured towards the door, the wood dark and ominous. But remember, knowledge is a curse in this chamber. In response, the shadows writhed, a mindless mass of despair that reached for her, grasping at her sanity. Behind Caleb, The figures in the window pressed against the glass, their faces a mix of anguish and pleading. They were trapped, forever ensnared in Caleb's web of torment, echoing her own fears. "Help me!" A distorted voice joined the chorus, chilling her to the bone. "It's a nightmare in there, don't let me in." "What if I don't?" she snapped, trying to sound defiant. "What if I walk away?" A draft swept through the room like a scream escaping the lips of a tortured spirit. Caleb merely chuckled, his laughter deep and echoing against the walls. "You can't walk away, not from your own truth. But you could be next, your soul joining the 78 who tread this path. Would you rather be a part of them or face the monsters you hide?" Samantha clenched her fists, taking a step back. The flickering lights cast erratic shadows that danced like phantoms, grasping for her. Their whispers filled the room once more, a cacophony of dread and desire, pulling her towards the door. "What if I'm worse than them?" she murmured, doubt seeping into her resolve like a slow poison. But the scream intensified, choking her thoughts. Another scream, now muffled, felt like a warning. "Don't be like me." The shadows pulsed, alive with anticipation, and Caleb pushed his face closer to hers. "Choose, Samantha. Time is running out. Truth or darkness." The air thickened, rattling her senses. She could feel the pull of the door, a magnetic force drawing her, whispering promises of release. The figures behind her screamed in silence, lost souls yearning for the liberation she might reject. Taking a deep breath, she reached out to the door. "Stay the hell away," she cried, flinching as icy fingers brushed her wrist. The walls trembled as Caleb stepped back, the grin fading, replaced with fury. "Enough games," he barked, the shadows momentarily retreating. For a moment, calm wrapped around her like a warm blanket. The screams faded into mere echoes, the pressure lifted. She had a choice, perhaps the first true choice she'd ever had. But the moment shattered as the room jolted violently, the floor beneath her teetering. "We'll see who really controls the darkness." Samantha Caleb's voice slithered into her thoughts as reality cracked. The door behind her rattled, desperate to be opened. Frightened whispers swirled together, flashes of memories swirling beneath their surface. And with one last echo, a face emerged from the darkness, a face she recognized all too well, twisted in agony. "Help me!" The scream tore through her once more, veering through her heart like a bared dagger. She could no longer tell whose victim she was, hers, the figure S or Caleb's. And then silence. The lights flickered back, and for a heartbeat, she felt the weight of 1,000 eyes on her. She was being watched. "Choose," the room whispered, shadows looming as her own reflection morphed in front of her, a grotesque version of herself, consumed by darkness. What would she unravel next? Samantha felt the weight of silence envelop her, a heavy shroud that pressed against her chest. The shadows seethed around her, as if they were alive, following her every move with a sinister hunger. She stood frozen, her hand still raised toward the door, its dark surface beckoning her like an open mouth ready to swallow her whole. "Make your choice," Caleb's voice boomed, and the walls echoed his command. The air crackled with a tension that made her skin itch. She could feel the pulse of fear in her throat, and her heart thundered as the door shuddered, tempting her with its promise of revelation. "What if I don't want to know?" she whispered, her voice wavering. The flickering lights cast unsettling shadows of her own silhouette against the walls, warping her form into something dark and twisted. "You already know too much," Caleb countered, his words dripping with malice. "The truth lives inside you like a parasite. Open the door, and you can finally set it free or let it consume you whole." Before she could answer, the screams began anew, louder and more desperate, ripping through the stillness like jagged glass. "Help! Don't open it!" The overlapping cries of anguish filled the space, drowning out any last traces of her thoughts. Samantha felt panic clawing at her throat. "Stop it!" she screamed, clutching her head as if she could push the noise away. It felt like her mind was fracturing, the desperate calls tearing at the edges of her sanity. Sinking to her knees, she squeezed her eyes shut, hoping the chaos would end. Caleb stood watching, amusement dancing in his features. What do you fear more? The truth or the darkness that thrives within? The air stilled as the voices faded into a low murmur. She opened her eyes to find Caleb looming closer, his eyes swirling like pools of darkness. She wanted to shove him away, but part of her was magnetically drawn to his malice, to the terrible comfort in surrender. In a moment of boldness, she challenged him. What if I embrace the darkness? What if I choose the truth? Caleb stepped back, surprise etched on his face, but something deeper flickered in his gaze. Then face it. But be warned, Samantha. What you unleash may be your undoing. With her heart racing, she turned her attention back to the door. Against all common sense, she reached for the handle. It was cold like ice, sending a jolt of electricity up her arm. Just as she gripped it, the shadows erupted, swirling violently around her, forming a vortex. No, Caleb shouted, extending a hand as if trying to hold back the impending chaos. You don't know what's in there. But it was too late. The door swung open with a guttural groan, revealing an abyss of swirling darkness behind it. Unfathomable shadows writhed, and a cacophony of tortured souls screamed, their voices merging with her own. Samantha hesitated, terror gripping her heart as she peered into the dark void. Visions flashed before her eyes, her childhood mistakes, faces of lost friends, moments of regret, each one fueling the terror threatening to swallow her whole. Help me, please. The voice was eerily familiar, laced with desperation, dragging at her heartstrings. Was it her? The shadows began to pull her closer, deeper into the void, and for a fleeting moment, all fear slipped away, replaced by an eerie calm. She could become one with them, understood and validated in her pain. Don't, Caleb shouted, but his voice was drowned out by the howling of the souls now fusing with her essence. As she was yanked into the darkness, she reached back, clawing at the air, desperate to escape. But could she let it consume her? Once more silence. Then, a blinding light erupted, blurring her vision as screams turned to whispers. Welcome home, they sighed, wrapping around her like a suffocating embrace. In the chaos of her spiraling thoughts, one question remained: was she a savior, or just another victim in Caleb's web? And as darkness enveloped her mind, Samantha felt a familiar flicker of fear ignite once more. What truly awaited her in the depths of this unrelenting darkness? Samantha's world spun as the light faded away, leaving pockets of shadow swirling like smoke around her. A whisper of a memory danced on the edges of her mind, tantalizing and elusive. She tried to scream, but no sound came out, just a muted gasp echoing in the void. Help me, the voice emerged again, sharper this time, resonating in the air as if it were her own imploring, desperate. Is it you? Samantha's thoughts screamed as the shadows coiled tighter, squeezing her with icy tendrils. She felt their weight bearing down on her, 1,000 unseen hands pulling her into a suffocating embrace. Panic surged anew. She didn't want to let it take her. With each breath, the echoes of those lost souls began to coalesce, forming a haunting melody that tugged at her consciousness. Let go, let us in, they sang, a siren's call spiraling through her mind. No, I'm not like you, she shouted, her voice breaking through the haze. I want to succumb, but a strange calm washed over her. That calm of acceptance, the kind that brings both relief and dread. Samantha realized that these shadows were mirrors, reflecting parts of herself she buried deep. Her failures, doubts, betrayals, they floated just within reach, waiting for her to acknowledge them. Do you remember? The voice lingered, heavy with regret. The time you walked away? Clutching at her chest, she felt her heartbeat quicken. Memories surged. The friends she abandoned, the choices she let slip through her fingers. The remorse carved a path through her heart, each heartbeat echoing louder, pressing on her like a phantom weight. The shadows swayed, pulsing with every dawning revelation. They whispered promises of understanding, of letting her forget the burdens she carried. We can share this pain, they coaxed, an unsettling comfort lacing their words. No, she yelled, now fighting against the seductive pull. You don't have to own me. but the darkness writhed in annoyance. They seemed to know her fears better than she did, each flicker of memory spinning out of control and dragging her back. The faces of lost friends morphed into contorted masks of anguish, their eyes begging for forgiveness she might never give. "Embrace it. We are one." The voices crescendoed, panic mixing with a rising thrill. Caleb's figure emerged from the shadows, somehow both familiar and alien. "Samantha, you must stand firm. You can't surrender to them." His features twisted between concern and satisfaction, mirroring her own internal struggle. "Fight it. Fight against myself?" she whispered, realization dawning. The darkness that threatened to consume her was woven from her own fears. To take control, she needed to own her pain. "Accept, release, be free," the whispers chorused again, their seductive harmony spinning her resolve like a web. Her breath quickened. "This isn't freedom, this is a prison." In that moment, clarity pierced the fog. This darkness didn't represent her, it was the shackles of her guilt. With new resolve, she dug her heels into the shadows, her mind racing. And in what felt like an eternity, Samantha steeled herself. "No more running. I won't fear you." As she thundered her defiance, the shadows recoiled, shrieking as they began fracturing, flickering like a dying flame. But was it too late? Caleb was moving closer. His eyes were narrowed, watchful. "You have the strength to do this. Just don't lose yourself in that moment." When she thought she could finally reclaim her power, the ground beneath her quaked. The shadows twisted, dark energy coiling and snapping like a serpent, reaching for her once more. With a heart pounding like a war drum, she wondered, could this be her salvation? Or was it just the beginning of a darker path? Something deep inside her stirred, awakening a primal fear that sent shivers down her spine. What awaited her if she dared to confront all she had hidden away? A blinding surge exploded from the fissures in the shadows, and as the darkness blurred all around her, one thought pulsed in her mind: had she unleashed a greater evil? And once more, the abyss beckoned, eager for her surrender. The ground shook violently, and Samantha felt herself topple. The shadows twisted and rolled, swirling into a vortex of despair. Frantic, she reached out, grasping at the nothingness around her, desperately searching for something to hold on to. "Caleb!" she screamed, her voice swallowed by the chaos. She could see him, a distant silhouette, but the darkness grew so thick it felt alive, writhing and biting at her ankles. "Stay with me," he yelled, the urgency in his voice piercing through the din. But she felt herself slipping away as the shadows clawed at her. A memory flickered in her mind: Caleb's face, clear and compassionate, a beacon amidst the storm. It faded as the shadows surged, enveloping her whole. Suddenly, she was submerged in the depths of her past, memories distorted by the cold grip of grief. A childhood friend, Emily, her laughing face twisted into a scream. "You left me," the voice echoed, a dagger of guilt twisting in Samantha's gut. "No, I didn't mean to," Samantha cried, but the shadows rolled deeper, swallowing her protests. Each face, each regret, surfaced. Jason's betrayal, her father's disappointment, it all crashed in on her like a tidal wave. "They won't forgive you," the shadows hissed, curling around her throat. "You cannot escape them." Samantha felt her air thicken, each breath more suffocating than the last. With desperation, she thought of Caleb. He had always believed in her. "You're stronger than this. Remember," echoed in her mind. Summoning that memory, a flicker of strength ignited within her, piercing through the darkness. "No, I will not be defined by them," she roared, rallying against the whirlpool of shadows. In defiance, she envisioned her past mistakes, drawing them forth like wild horses. One by one, she acknowledged each regret, each moment of weakness that had driven her down this dark path. "You were choices, not chains," she spat, unleashing a powerful surge of light that burst from her core. The shadows recoiled, shrieking in a cacophony of rage. In the midst of this chaos, she felt a shift beneath her feet. The ground rumbled again. But this time it wasn't an earthquake, it was something more primal. an awakening of her own power. "I am not alone," she shouted, reaching for the light that blazed through her. She pulled it into herself, letting it shatter the embrace of the darkness. "I am whole," the shadows screamed as they disintegrated, a maelstrom of shrieks and wails spiraling into oblivion. Samantha stood, her hands glowing, a shield against all that had haunted her. Caleb's face grew clearer as he stepped forward, awestruck. "You did it," he breathed, the shadows receding like a dark tide. But as relief washed over her, a pulse of cold wind rushed back, slamming into her. The ground cracked and split, an ominous rumble echoing from the depths. A new presence emerged, something darker, more ancient than the shadows she'd just fought. "Not all are gone," it whispered, a chilling reminder of her deepest fears, the uncertainty creeping back into her heart. As the ground shifted beneath their feet, a cold hand of dread clutched at her. The shadows may have retreated, but this new threat loomed ever closer, hungry, waiting to consume what she had just reclaimed. "Caleb," she gasped, realizing that their battle was far from over. Could she muster the strength once more, or was she destined to face a terror anew? As the darkness loomed, Samantha braced herself. What other horrors awaited in this unfathomable abyss? The earth trembled again, and Samantha felt a dread she couldn't shake, the chill wrapping around her spine like ice. Caleb's hand gripped hers, and she could feel his pulse, steady and strong. But her heart raced, pounding wildly in her chest as the darkness closed in, each heartbeat a reminder of the terror lurking just beyond sight. The air thickened, and a heavy silence fell, oppressive and suffocating. "Do you feel that? Something's coming," Caleb whispered, his voice barely audible over the echoing thuds of her heart. Shadows wriggled, growing bolder. She could sense their hunger, a palpable force reaching towards her. Then it happened. A voice, low and raspy, like fingernails scraping glass. "You think light could save you?" it crooned, dripping with malice. Samantha's breath caught in her throat. "You think you've conquered your history?" Images flashed, faces twisted in agony, haunting whispers of those she had lost. Emily's scream pierced through the heavy silence, filling the air with despair. "You turned your back. We trusted you." The air crackled, and the shadows expanded, transforming into dark figures, each one a specter wrapped in despair. Samantha's fists clenched, trembling with rage and fear. "No!" she shouted, the defiance bursting from her like a fireball. "I can face my past. I won't let you drag me back." But the figures only laughed, a chorus of laughter that sent shivers racing down her spine. "Face your past? This isn't your past, dear Samantha. This is your soul's reckoning." The laughter swelled, thrumming within her, an echo of everyone she'd wronged, everyone she'd loved and lost. It became a raucous symphony, spiraling beyond anything she could bear. Caleb stepped closer, shielding her. "We can fight together," he said, voice firm, but even he seemed rattled. Was he truly fearless, or merely putting on a brave face for her sake? With a surge of courage washing over her, Samantha drew upon the light that had once flickered inside her. She could feel its warmth rising, but doubt wormed its way into the cracks. "What if this time I can't overcome it?" she thought, dread pooling in her stomach. Then, in the looming void, she spotted something. A faint glimmer, barely detectable amid the swirling darkness. It pulsed a heartbeat, steady and bright. "Caleb," she gasped, urgency dripping from her voice. "That light, we have to reach it." He nodded, determination etched across his features. Together, they moved forward, a small ray of hope against the monstrous tide, hearts racing. With each step, the shadows clawed at their legs, pulling them back like grasping hands. "You can't escape what's inside you," the voice taunted, echoing as the figures advanced, growing countless, looming ever closer. Samantha reached deep within, her fear and regret surging, threatening to overwhelm her. "No, I am more than my mistakes," she cried, as she and Caleb fought through the darkness together. But just as they neared the light, The ground buckled beneath them. A deafening crack split the air, and they stumbled, balance lost. The darkness roared with glee. You can't look away. The abyss will have you. With desperation fueling her, she pushed backward against the tide, her feet slipping on the shifting ground. But that glimmer, the heart of hope, drew her in, beckoning. Hold on, Caleb shouted, grasping at her hand. As she fought to reach the light, the shadows surged, consuming her vision until the last flicker of brightness vanished. The terror crescendoed around her, swallowing her scream. And in that moment, just before being engulfed, a new fear settled in the pit of her stomach. What if the very light they sought was the ultimate trap? What awaited them on the other side? If they could even reach it. The chaos swirled around them, and Samantha felt time stretch, every heartbeat echoing with the promise of retribution. The darkness writhed, a living entity pulling at her spirit, wanting to consume her whole. But she couldn't let it win. She wouldn't find herself buried in the uncertainty ever again. Caleb, she shouted, pushing against the tide of shadows, determination fueling her every movement. Don't let go. Never, he replied, his grip tightening around her hand, a lifeline in the ever-deepening night. With each step forward, they fought against the memories clawing at their resolve, the faces of those they had lost, all the regrets dragging behind them like chains. Samantha's chest tightened with a love and sorrow she had buried for too long. Remember why we're fighting, Caleb urged, his voice ringing out fiercely among the chaos. You've come too far. Strength began to blossom in Samantha's heart, a reminder of the ties that had once grounded her. Emily's face flashed through her thoughts, not of anger but of hope. She had failed her once, yes, but failure itself was a lesson, a chain that could be broken. No, she roared, pushing back against the tide, feeding on the flicker of resolve that ignited inside her. I refuse to be defined by fear. The shadows hesitated, recoiling as if her words struck a chord within them. A moment of hesitation turned into a wave of strength surging through Samantha, and she felt Caleb's presence beside her, unwavering. Together, they pressed on, battling against the whispers and dark specters surrounding them. With renewed vigor, she reached out, grasping for that glimmer of light, the pulsing heartbeat that signified hope and healing. It's just ahead. Her voice rang clear, piercing through the darkness. The shadows convulsed with fury, shrieking as they sensed their impending defeat. No, you cannot escape, they screamed, their wails clawing at her sanity. Not escaping, Samantha shouted back. We're accepting our past. In unison, they sprinted towards the light, the shadows clawing frantically at their heels. They were ready to engulf them. But this time, Samantha wouldn't falter. With each nearing step, the pulse of light grew stronger, illuminating the path ahead and shoving back the darkness. Caleb's voice rang through the clamor. We can do this together. Then, just as they saw the light's radiance burst forth, the shadows surged one last time, intense and insatiable. Join us. You'll never escape. But in that moment, Samantha couldn't just think of escape. She thought of the souls who had been burdened and lost long before her. She thought of her regrets and her battles. I embrace my past, she declared. I accept my truth. The light erupted in a surge so incandescent, it melted through the darkness and dissolved the shadows, turning their screams into wisps of smoke. Samantha and Caleb felt the warmth of the light wrap around them, infusing their weary bones with a strength greater than fear itself. I'm ready for what's next, she yelled as they broke free into the expanse of the light. Suddenly, they were enveloped by warmth, cradled in an embrace of all the light they had ever hoped for. The darkness behind them faded to a distant memory, leaving only an echo, a reminder of what once was. Together, they stood unshaken, surrounded by brilliance and clarity. Did we do it? Caleb breathed, astonished. Yes, Samantha replied, her voice thick with emotion. We faced the shadows and we chose to move forward. The past doesn't define us. It shapes us. Fear and anguish were transformed into acceptance, a healing that seeped into their very beings. They had acknowledged their truths and emerged stronger. As the light bathed them in its glow, Samantha felt a sense of freedom spreading through her, removing the burdens of guilt and fear that had held her captive for so long. She turned to Caleb, a soft smile breaking on her face. "What now?" Caleb grinned back, eyes sparkling with a newfound hope. "Now we live. We help others who are still trapped in their shadows." And with that, they stepped forward, together, leaving behind the darkness for a brighter future. This was their moment, a beginning rather than an end, a chance to write their own story, to weave light into the fabric of their lives. To all of you watching, this is where our journey draws to a close, but it's just the beginning for Samantha and Caleb. If you want to discover what comes next, you need to subscribe now so we can keep bringing you these exclusive stories. Smash that like button now to feed the algorithm cat so we can reach more people. Flood the comments section with your reactions and theories about Samantha's fate. And for those brave souls who want to share in this adventure, instantly share this video with at least 5 friends who need to experience this conclusion. Don't wait even one more second, show your support, and join us in the next chapter.